Hello and welcome to Films on That. My name's Rob Turnbull.
And my name's Sam Hall.
And today we are looking at Repo Man.
And why did you pick Repo Man this week?
Well, it's a fun little B movie that I really liked, and I really love fun little B movies.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's go.
Let's go.
A young punk who repossesses cars gets caught up in a wacky alien conspiracy. This review contains spoilers. So the first thing that struck me when I was watching this is just how punk it was. Get that opening title sequence with Iggy Pop.
The first thing that struck me was how British it was. I think it's kind of because it feels a little bit disjointed, but in a deliberate sort of way.
Yeah, so you get kind of like the Young Ones vibe in certain bits.
Yes, definitely. At times it's a little bit cinema verite as well. There's a lot of long shots and stuff. Not a lot of fast, quick cutting, which is more the American style of the 80s. And then I didn't realise who the director was, so I looked up the director and it was Alex Cox, who is a British man. And presumably a fan of punk, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So we get introduced to our main character called Otto.
Feeling lucky, seven.
Kevin, stop singing, man.
Huh? Wasn't singing, guy.
I'm standing right next to you and you're fucking singing. Cut it out.
He just doesn't really give a shit about his job, basically.
He doesn't give a shit about anything.
But then you get that scene later on when he's about to have sex with someone and he takes his trousers off and then folds them really neatly or something. So it's
I didn't notice that.
It's kind of like contrast between the kind of anarchic punk style and then this kind of anally retentiveness to him.
Excuse me while I fold my pants.
All the way through, you're sort of constantly thinking about certain metaphors, because some of them are quite glaring, most notably the labels on all the food is all the same.
Which is straight out of They Live, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
At one point it just says food. He's eating a can of food.
Yeah.
Put it on a plate, son. You'll enjoy it more.
Couldn't enjoy it anymore, Mom. This is swell.
I kind of thought, is it like a part of it, like a metaphor of that growing up period, of going from the sort of the reckless youth to actually trying to get some kind of responsibility, but still being quite reckless at the same time. In reality, growing up but not growing up. Yeah,
because basically he has to get a job.
What do you want? You want to make $10? Fuck you, queer.
So he's approached by a man who asks him to help him drive his wife's car home, but it turns out he's been tricked into repossessing the car.
This kid, jacks in his life and becomes a Repo Man, makes new friends, including Harry Dean Stanton, who becomes the kind of sage character who sort of, teaches him the ways of life and everything.
The ways of being a Repo Man.
The ways of being a Repo Man.
There's a Repo Man code and everything. There's this whole kind of code of ethics. It's kind of like a religion, isn't it, really? Like a religious cult is basically how I describe it.
Yes. Although it seems really contradictory, because the first thing is say, you don't break into a car is one of the sort of the rules or something.
I never broke into a car, I never hotwired a car, kid. I never broke into a trunk.
Then they do.
And they do, yeah. And don't damage it or its contents, and that's the big thing. And then they say, no, we never break that. No one ever breaks that. But I thought, how else do they repossess them? Because the people when they're repossessed from are always really surprised that it's happening. Yeah. So I kind of got a bit confused by that.
Yeah, this is kind of what I mean by it's quite meandering. It doesn't really stick to its guns a lot of the time. It kind of goes, we're just going to do this now, do something crazy and random.
Miss Magruder, I have something here for you.
How utterly charming.
So he meets this kind of group of people. They're all wacky. They're all kind of bizarre individuals.
There's loads. There's so many characters that are memorable because of their little wacky traits.
Yeah, like the policeman, who I don't even think is an actual policeman.
Yeah.
He's just hanging around the Repo Man garage, knitting.
Yeah, and they treat him as such as well. They don't give a shit what he does, and they're not afraid of him. There's the mechanic who's sort of is he a mechanic? Or is he just dressed like a mechanic?
Yeah. Well, he's like a crazy conspiracy nut guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Who starts talking about
great things. It says that people appeared because they were taken from the future and back into the past or whatever. And that's how the human race is cyclical, like that,
Where'd all these people disappear to?
The past?
That's right. And how'd they get there?
How the fuck do I know?
Flying saucers.
Yeah, and I want to mention, like, everyone just seems completely disillusioned. Like, there's one sequence where they're like in a laundry place, and there's just one shot of like someone's just lying on the floor and no one cares. Or like later on, there's like a hazmat team taking someone away and putting them in a van, and Otto's just walking past watching it, and no one cares about any of this kind of horrific nature to it. It's just part of their life, and it's just so mundane.
What do you think that says about like the grander narrative, or do you think is there any point for saying about the grander narrative, the kind of maybe the disparity between your actual life and the kind of news stories and that, and how they don't really sort of mesh a lot of the time, especially if you're from the first world?
Well, it reminded me a lot of like RoboCop and a lot of Paul Verhoeven stuff.
Oh yes, like okay.
Which
that's a good. No, I didn't think of that, but yeah.
Yeah, which I love that kind of style. So then maybe that's why this film like spoke to me. But this kind of
it's
we're
so satire.
Satire. We're so disillusioned. We're so kind of fed by TV of what to believe that no one's like in touch with how the world actually is. I think.
That you told me that you'd give me $1,000 to go to Europe if I finished school.
I don't have it anymore.
What?
Your father gave all our extra money to the Reverend's telethon, Otto. We're sending Bibles to El Salvador.
Well, what about me?
Yeah, I mean, shall we get into the plot?
Yes, we better do.
So the first opening sequence is a policeman who kind of hails down someone who's speeding or driving dangerously.
What you got in the trunk?
Oh, you don't want to look in there.
But the guy inside, he's acting really strangely and oddly, and so the policeman goes and checks in the trunk, and he's immediately vaporized by what's in the trunk.
Yeah.
But I really like that actor's performance in that.
Yeah.
He's so creepy and he's so like alien.
He has a great little standout scene, because most of it he's just sort of like, just in and out, and you don't really get to know him. And then there's just this one scene when Otto goes into his car basically to repossess it, but then he just listens to this monologue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever feel as if your mind had started to erode?
Yeah.
Ever been to Utah?
And then he just crashes and then gets out and dies.
Dies of presumably radiation poisoning, because the Chevy Malibu that they're all after is radioactive.
Yeah, we should say that that's the kind of main through line of the story, is that everyone's trying to repossess this Malibu, which has a really high price tag, so it's like this MacGuffin, really.
Yeah.
And the CIA or the FBI are trying to get hold of it as well, because it's got some kind of alien conspiracy involvement. It's got a very kind of anarchic sense of narrative sometimes. There's this kind of alien conspiracy happening underneath this seemingly mundane aspect of Otto just trying to repossess cars from people. So it does kind of meander a bit. It does go around the houses, and there's no like clear narrative, I would have said. That kind of ties into just the punk, we want to do this because it's fun aspect of it.
Oh dear, what a shame.
Come on, Duke, let's go do those crimes.
Yeah, let's go get sushi and not pay.
I wanted to point out there's quite a lot of comedy or attempts at comedy, which some bits made me laugh out loud, but other bits are just really stilted.
Yeah.
Like there's a bit when Otto's girlfriend works for like the UFO Society, and it says like United Fruitcake Association or something.
Or Fruit Loops, something like that, yeah. And he just laughs at that, and that felt a bit flat for me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
United Fruitcake Outlet.
My door doesn't work.
I think what the genius of the script is, it's the creativity, rather than the dialogue, I'd say.
I do like how they call everyone dildos. That made me laugh. You dildo.
Dildos!
Particularly when he's in the car and he's explaining to his girlfriend what he does for a living.
I'm a Repo Man.
What's that?
It's a repossessor. They take back cars from dildos that don't pay their bills. Cool, huh?
What I remember most about that scene, though, is an old woman saying, "Pick up the trash," because he just crashed in some garbage cans.
Yeah.
And she's, "Pick up the trash. You pick that up," or whatever.
Go on, you pick it up. What? You pick it up.
No way.
And then she appears later, and for some reason I remembered that.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the strange things about the film, is you remember all these little weird characters that keep on propping up. And some of them seem that like not that significant, because times in this when you're like, what's a metaphor and what's supposed to be real, I guess, you know, like, is it more important that they have this rivalry with the Rodriguez brothers, who are sort of another set of Repo Men, I think? Is that more relevant, or is the fact that everyone's after this Malibu car, you know, the more relevant thing? And sometimes it's just like, sometimes that is the driving point, and sometimes it's, you know, just their lives.
Yeah.
And growing up, and how you deal with different situations and stuff.
It's weird because you'll have a scene where he's just driving around talking to his girlfriend or whatever, and it's kind of comedic. Then you'll have a scene completely after that when he meets his old friend in the shop and they try and rob it, and then everyone gets shot and dies.
Shit!
And it's like a complete contrast to the silly kind of mundane aspect before. Although you do get the comedy of when he's dying and he's like, "Oh, I blame society."
He says, "You're a white guy from the middle class white guy or whatever."
Yeah, you're just a punk.
Yeah.
I know a life of crime led me to this sorry fate. And yet, I blame society.
For me.
It's a bit like a series of sketches.
Yeah.
Kind of. Not like a strong sense of narrative or anything like that.
There's definitely like the illusion of the narrative. I think that's about what the Chevy Malibu is. I think it's the illusion of a narrative, when really they just wanted to do, like, you know, a series of sort of funny sketches. And the heart of the film is this guy, really, Otto, who is also a complete arsehole throughout. Like, they make it really difficult to like him. They still make him, you know, like, he's still a protagonist, you know, in a good way. He's not a failed protagonist.
It's still relatable, but yeah, like when he meets the Repo Men, the first thing he does is just pour beer on the floor after they've been nice to him and giving him money or whatever. Just
because they're Repo Men. There's just a series of things, like he goes into his girlfriend's work and says, he just comes onto her really strongly, so she slaps him, you know, and he takes his trousers off and everything. And he's horrible to her, you know. And it's not like they're sort of trying to say there's anything good right about that, you know. They're making it pretty clear that he's a horrible person.
What did you want to tell me?
Oh. Take off your clothes.
I'm at work, Otto.
Oh yeah? Me too.
Your work is different than mine.
Says who?
What are you doing? Don't do that!
Well, the least you could do is give me a blowjob.
There's another thing that made me think that one of the other Repo Men says, "You've got to read this book." And then the next scene, you see this book in his hand, and he throws it into a fire immediately. You know? And things like that keep on happening. And after that bit, I was trying to look to see what he was throwing into the fire in case it was like significant in some way. There was like a sort of Mexican style hat and things like that. But I don't think there was that significant, you know, maybe I was reading it too much into it. But there's so many things where you start to look around at the scenery. But there's a world here, though. It's just interesting how disjointed it is, but at the same time, it's still there. It's like a little community. Everyone's connected, you know. Like, we haven't mentioned his ex-co-worker, who seems to be like his best friend, but not his best friend.
Yeah, and he keeps turning up in various situations. At one point, he's in like the hospital.
Otto.
Like, he's really mean to him.
Constantly mean to him. Yeah. It's like, yeah. Well, even at the beginning when they're having this horrible house party, this you know, you find out that people are having sex in his parents' bedroom or something. So you find out it's his house that people are having this party in, and he doesn't seem to do anything wrong.
And I kind of feel
apart from he's a bit idiotic, I suppose.
But I kind of feel he got fired because of Otto as well.
Yes.
Otto got fired, so he got fired as well.
Yeah, in association, you know. And he's just one in like a long list of just weird characters that just keep on popping up. And
Yeah, like the FBI lady who's got like a robot
Yes,
hand.
of course. Yeah, we haven't even
What's
mentioned
that
that.
about?
So they have to sort of rope in this alien car, whatever it is, thing somehow, and they've got this FBI agent woman who's quite clearly has like too much power, and she's torturing people, and has absolutely no care in the world about what happens to real people, and she has a metal hand, which is never explained, of course. But she seems okay for some punks to start licking it.
A metal hand.
Cool.
Can we feel it?
Enchanté.
So the plot of the film, it all culminates with these kind of 3 different groups trying to get hold of this car, which ends up through various means at the Repo Man garage, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And then it starts to kind of glow or get more radioactive for some reason. And no one can get close to it except for the crazy mechanic guy who just gets in.
Who just gets in. You've got to end your film somehow.
Yeah. It's quite confusing because there's so many characters there and there's so much has gone on through the film. You're trying to like think back, who's this person? Why are they here? But everyone arrives at this kind of final destination. The mechanic gets in the car and then like beckons to Otto to get in.
Yeah.
So he gets in as well, which
after being incredibly rude to his girlfriend.
Which is my favourite line in the entire film.
What about our relationship?
What?
What about our relationship?
Fuck that.
Fuck that. He just doesn't give a shit at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, he gets in the car and then the car flies off and then like presumably they go back in time like the mechanic said.
Presumably,
yeah.
After flying around for a while. Also, there's a thing about the mechanic doesn't drive. There's lots of little lines throughout the film that I really like, because the mechanic says earlier, the more you drive, the more stupid you are or something, or the less intelligent you are, which I appreciate because I can't drive.
But he does all his best thinking on the bus, he says.
Yes.
The more you drive, the less intelligent you are.
Yeah, there's quite a triumphant ending actually, even though it has nothing like. No one gets the car, no one gets the money for the car, so what everyone has been fighting the entire film to get doesn't happen. But they kind of fly off and it's like nice little music, they're all up in the sky, flying around, it's quite happy. And it's just, I don't know, it's quite an interesting way to end the film, I think. Nothing really gets resolved.
Yeah, I wouldn't call the film nihilistic. It's more just sort of anarchic, really, and is it? Shall I use the dirty word postmodern?
Yeah, it is postmodern.
Yeah. Okay.
Even in the 80s.
Yeah.
This is intense. Life of a Repo Man is always intense.
I did get a bit kind of tired of the film towards the end because it gets so meandering and so kind of confusing. I think I would have just liked it if it was just about Otto stealing cars for the entire thing. So I think it does lose its way a bit. But in a way, that's kind of the point of the film, I think. I've not seen a film like it before. Because it's quite kind of risky to do that, I think. Just do something so stupid that it can be dismissed as kind of self-indulgent quite a lot of the time. Yeah. But I think it does work for this film. It's not too self-indulgent, would you say?
No, it's not too self-indulgent because it's like self-aware.
Suppose you're thinking about a plate of shrimp. Suddenly somebody will say like plate or shrimp or plate of shrimp out of the blue, no explanation. No point in looking for one either. It's all part of a cosmic unconsciousness.
You eat a lot of acid, Miller, back in the hippie days?
It's occurred to me actually that it's probably about the end of the punk era as well. I mean, there's a lot of like references like that, I'd say. You know, his punk friend dying, and it's like that bridge of the end of the 70s going into the 80s, and the 80s being that kind of, particularly in America and LA, Reaganomics thing of, you know, just consumerism and pop and everything. Maybe the metaphor of the car, it's like this sort of outer world thing, out of sight from reality, where punk is sort of like this breaking down of societal norms and everything. The Reagan era was kind of this, you know, reassembling, and Thatcher era as well, this reassembling of conservative traditional values, but with this kind of added consumerist, over-the-top, pulpy, weird kind of effect, you know. But maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Goddamn dipshit Rodriguez, gypsy, dildo, punks!
I preferred this on the second watch. I think the meandering and the kind of the B-movie stuff of it, you know, because I didn't know what to expect, that aspect of it kind of wore me down a bit. But I appreciated it more on the second watch when I knew what I was going into.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to do this before Red Letter Media did it, because I think it's the sort of film they would do.
Yeah. Right, okay. That was the real reason? Yeah, the real reason you wanted to do it. Okay. Yeah. I'm sure somebody's done it, but yeah, we got there before Red Letter Media. Fingers crossed, they probably edit quicker than us.
Yeah, if their video goes out between now and when this video goes out.
I kind of hope they do now. That would make it funnier.
Okay, that's it for this time on Films on That. Thanks for watching and subscribing. We'll see you next time.
Ciao.